Well, hello everyone. My name is R du Plessis, and I'm going to be talking to you today about Commedia dell'Arte, but especially, as you can see on the slide, Commedia dell'Arte characters. So firstly, what is Commedia dell'Arte? As you can see, it's a comedy performance that's popular in Renaissance period. And it usually uses stock or stereotype characters in the stories. The actors were multi-talented. They could sing and dance and juggle and do acrobatics and all other things. And they were also very strong comedians and excellent in improvisation, scenes and scenarios. And this also means that the performance didn't work from a script, but rather just had a basic outline for every story that they would perform. And then this is a very crucial and a very recognized thing about Commedia dell'Arte. It was that the actors wore masks to portray the different characters so that you can identify the character based on the mask that they are wearing. There are a few types of characters in Commedia dell'Arte. Firstly, there are masters and they are servant characters. But then there are also the lovers, or as they are called, innamorati. Now, these actors or these characters are young and attractive and very well educated, and they can also be naive and passionate. They do not wear masks, and they usually dress in the fashion of the time. So this also means that the actors themselves are also very young and attractive people. And also the story that the characters tell, or that they tell for Commedia, it also usually evolves around the lovers, where the male lover has a rival who is also in love with the woman, and then the servants have to help them get together. That's usually how the story goes. Yeah. And then we have the master characters. The master characters are usually the villains or the antagonist characters, especially this one, Pantalone. Pantalone is an old miser. He is stingy and cruel, and he's nasty to his servants. And he's also very rich. He's almost like Scrooge, like in that one movie and book, Nightmare Before Christmas, yes. And the servants would usually, throughout the story, trick him and turn him against them in the story. He is the antagonist character. And during that time, the audience would always sometimes hiss and boo at him because he was such an unlovable and arrogant character. And his mask, he had a very specific mask that he wore that had a hook nose and a pointed beard, as you can see in the photo. Right. Next one is the doctor, or il dottore. He is a friend or a rival of Pantalone, and they are usually a duo on stage. He is a learned man, or he is supposedly a learned man, but he is actually dim-witted and doesn't know what he's talking about. He loves the sound of his own voice and showing off his so-called knowledge, but he doesn't know a lot. He wears academic gowns, and he has a mask that with red cheeks and a fat nose, with usually a beard and a mustache. And then lastly, for the master characters, is the captain, or il capitano. Now, this character is usually a stereotype of an Italian or a Spanish person, and he struts around proudly, but is also very clumsy. He's a coward, but he loves to brag about his battles and all the battles that he's fought. But then when there's real trouble or real battle, someone wants to fight him, he would usually just run away. His mask is a very impressive large mustache and nose with his nose, and he wears a flashy military uniform. Now, if we go to the servant characters, or the zani, they're called zani. There are quite a lot, but these two are the most prominent. So we've got the Arlecchino, or the Harlequin, and he is very acrobatic character and a dancer, and he has a very slapstick manner to him. He is the main servant to Pantalone usually, And he is also mistreated by Pantalone, and thus he rebels against his master. He's a stupid character, but he has instances where he has good ideas or good wit to get back to Pantalone, or to do a scheme or con to try and trick him. And as for his mask, he wears half masks and multiple colored clothes and carries a slapstick to beat his rivals, as you can see by the picture. Then for a female Zani called the Columbina, she is the maid servant to the female lover, and she is very loyal to her mistress. She always gives her mistress good advice, and she's very clever as well. She and Harlequin is usually a couple, and they are paired up together, or she is in a relationship with some of the other Zani. She does not always wear a mask and wears the fashions of the day, but usually for a little lower classer, where the lovers wear the tip point of fashion because they are fashionable and rich and sophisticated. The Columbina would still wear nice clothing, but for a servant in the household, not the mistress. Yeah. So these are the characters mostly. And another thing just important about the characters is their masks are very important to the characters and the way they move. The audience can instantly recognize a character by their mask. So the actor needs to play the mask, meaning that if the actor plays Pantalone, they have to wear the mask with the pointy nose and the beard, because then the audience can immediately see, oh, that character is the villain. That character is Pantalone, and he's going to be really greedy and rich. But then they also have to move like Pantalone, the way he would move back then. They also have to integrate speech, movement, and physical skills that is typical for that specific character. So Pantalone is an old man. So you'd always be hunched forward, you know, and his hands sort of in front and sort of scrunched in, and he would walk like that. While the captain would be very open and very like confident and shoulders back and arms wide. So they have to move in a certain way. And there's so much detail in that you can go on with that. Multiple actors can play the same character. So one actor can play any of the characters just by wearing the mask and changing the way they move. And each character has a specific posture and style of movement that is unique. If you look at the lovers move very flowingly, very like elegantly, especially the female lover, while the Harlequin is very bouncy and is very full of energy and very somersault all over the place. And the doctor usually has a belly. And he would walk belly forward in a sense. So the belly would be his moving force. So those are just some of the movements of the character, but it's just important to know that the mask and the movement make the character, and that any actor can play the character with those masks and movements. Now here is just a photo of a play I did where I was Commedia dell'Arte characters. This is me. And I just put this picture up just to see if people can recognize just by the way they stand and their mask, who they would be based on what I just said about the characters and their mask. Now, this is the Columbina. Yes, in this they sometimes don't have masks, but for this one she does, but she is the Columbina because she's the female servant to the lover. And here in the middle is the doctor, because he's got the big belly and he's got the mustache and the little beard. And just the posture of belly forward is important. Then, of course, here we are, that the lovers' characters. That's easy to spot. They are together, they're not wearing masks, and they are very flowy and elegant, even in their outfits. And over here, number 4, this is the Pantalone, old man hunched forward, his sort of crooked hands and the very bushy eyebrows, and you can't see it much, but he's got a big nose as well in this photo. And then lastly, this one is the Harlequin. He's got his little, okay, because everything here is black and white, he's not the colorful, but he's got his slapstick. And he's got his over-the-top gestures that you could just see that he's very acrobatic. Yeah, so this is just a basic insight of the characters. Yes, there are a few more servant characters that I haven't mentioned yet, and might even be a few more master characters, but these characters are the core for every Commedia dell'Arte play. The play would be slightly different every time. Like maybe in one of the plays, Pantalone is the father of the female lover, and he doesn't like that she wants to marry the lover, and he wants her to marry the doctor, or something like that. In this story, the father wants the daughter to marry another man, so she pretends to be sick and doesn't talk, so he hires a doctor to try and fix her. And then the servants try to get the two lovers together. That's basically the plot. And then the doctor also has a fling with Columbina, who is married to Harlequin. So it's complicated relationships. So it's just a lot of slapstick, a lot of over the top. And the audience would just enjoy it because they know the characters. So even if it's different actors playing the characters, they know who the characters are. Okay. So I think that's basics about Commedia dell'Arte. And yeah, I hope that it makes sense and that you could understand a bit more about the characters. Yeah, there's a lot more about this topic, but for now, this is just a good overview of the characters. Okay, yes, thank you for listening. Okay.